Yo, yo, yo. No, I'm not doing that. I'm just kidding.
What's up, party people?
Thank you for joining us, guys. I am excited to talk about what we just watched and what we get to continue to watch. And that is Hellier Season 2.
Yeah. For those that are like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? He's talking about the Patreon episode that we just did. It's not really an episode. We just kind of watched Hellier, the first episode of Season 2. And, talked during it at some points and kind of put our own thoughts, I guess, out there. We didn't get too in depth, but, if you're interested in that sort of thing, go check out our Patreon channel. But we're going to talk about we were fortunate enough to get the press kit for Season 2. So I watched the first 4 episodes of Season 2. By the time this episode comes out, the season will have been released. I think it's on Amazon Prime. And everyone will have access to it. But at the time of recording, they have not been released yet. So we had an opportunity to watch them. I watched the first 4 episodes, and we're going to talk about it in this episode now. So if you haven't watched it yet, I suggest going to check it out first, because we're going to get into spoilers and really kind of dig in. Now, keep in mind, at the time of this recording, we have not finished the season. The season is 10 episodes long. So things that we're talking about are only relevant up until episode 4. And beyond that, I don't know what happens. So maybe what the things that I'm talking about or questions I have get answered as we go along. Just keep that in mind.
And I have not watched them purposefully so I can hear this information that Mike's going to share about the first 4 episodes. The same way you guys will. Just completely fresh to me. I definitely am going to go watch them. And like we said, we did watch episode 1 on the Patreon, and I got to say, Mike, we're already off to a good start. I'm so excited. I think I'm going to go back and watch Season 1 again before I jump into Season 2.
Just as an aside, for some reason, my web camera turned on, and it should not be on.
That's weird.
That's very weird. I've got a thing taped over it, but I can see the light glowing through. So for some reason, it's on.
That is weird.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at Skype and see if it's showing.
It never shows in Skype, and it says that my camera is turned off.
Yeah, I'm not getting a camera signal on Skype from you. That's strange.
Yeah, it's very weird.
That's what we get for talking about Hellier.
Yeah. So the first episode of Hellier, it's more, a lot of it is a recap, and then we kind of get teases for what's going on ahead later in the season. So it's really more of a preview of things to come. We get some clips from episode 4, and we get some things that are going to play out in the next few episodes. What was your overall opinion of the first episode?
I was excited to have a second season. Like I said, it instantly reminded me of Season 1 and brought up all the feelings and how weird things got in that season. And I like where they're focusing, at least what they're saying they're going to focus on. After the release of Season 1, you can only imagine all the stuff that's come in and what other leads they probably just found on their own, continuing to investigate. So they're talking about narrowing down things they can actually investigate and not, thankfully, hearing, not get caught up in the flood of stuff that's going to appear on the internet or messages they're going to get or emails they're going to get from everybody in the world now. So it looks very promising. The direction they talk about is going into looking into Woody Derenberger and Indrid Cold, which, as you know, I'm a big fan of. So that's going to be very interesting. They brought up talking to Woody Derenberger's daughter, which I gotta say is weird. We've done both of us done our fair share of research on Woody Derenberger and Indrid Cold, and I've never even knew that he had a daughter that continued looking into this stuff or carried the torch of what she says is being a contactee of Indrid Cold, right?
Yeah, and she actually wrote a book, a follow-up to Woody Derenberger's book. I can't remember what his book was called. Do you remember off the top of your head?
No, not off the top of my head. It's something weird like, Times with Flying Saucers or something.
Yeah, it was, I can't remember what it was, but hers it's a similar title. But it's about her experiences with Indrid Cold and Indrid Cold's people, mainly his family, and how she kind of grew up dealing with him. Like he was a familiar face to her. She knew him, he knew her, his kids knew her, and they stayed in contact throughout all the years. So it's I have not read either book, so I don't know really how reliable the story is. And as we can see in the first episode of Hellier season 2, they include a clip of John Keel that was basically saying that he didn't buy everything that Woody Derenberger was saying, and he believed the initial story, but beyond that, he seemed pretty skeptical.
Well, yeah, I was surprised to hear that, and like you had mentioned when we watched it, I wasn't aware of that John Keel interview, so I'm going to go back and look at what that interview's from and try to watch that as well, because that's fascinating stuff too. But yeah, that's very weird. I got to be honest and say I never gave any thought to Indrid Cold still making contact with him. And, hearing how she describes her interaction with Indrid Cold, it's pretty much how Woody Derenberger described their interactions with Indrid Cold, and his crew, because he said they came back and visited Woody forever. I mean, I read Woody's book, and I think I read it before we did the Woody Derenberger Indrid Cold episode. So there may be information from that book passed on in that episode. I don't know, but there was a point in time where Woody Derenberger just disappeared for 3 or 4 months. And when he came back, people were like, "Where the hell were you?" And he said, "I was with Indrid Cold on their planet," So they came over all the time. It was like a weekly visitor. That's what he described it as.
Oh, it's Uncle Indrid.
Yeah. So
yay! I love Uncle Indrid.
So it's interesting to hear that she's talking about it, and like I said, carrying on the torch. But she comes up with some stuff. What they find out, and they reveal it in the first episode.
Yeah. What did you think of that bombshell?
I thought they say that she, after keeping contact with Indrid Cold and his crew, that Indrid Cold and his crew is now dead, and she doesn't know how, and when she gets the information, she'll let us know. But I thought, I don't know why I considered Indrid Cold dead a long time ago. I don't know why. But,
out of sight, out of mind, maybe?
Well, if he's an alien, he wasn't, he's probably not subjugated to the same laws of aging that humans are. And if he is, he was described as a middle-aged man back then, so he'd be pretty damn old.
Maybe they just stay middle-aged for a while.
That's the right age, so they genetically modify themselves.
They're like, you know what? This is a good age. We'll be middle-aged. That's nice.
Doesn't the Bible say something like that? Like the actual age of adulthood is 30 or something?
No, I don't know. I know back in Genesis they used to live to like 180 years old or 380 years. I don't know. Like basically forever years old. And then God's like, you know what? You people live too goddamn long. So you get to live 90 years now. There you go. Bam.
Maybe you'll make better choices if you have less time to deal with those decisions.
Yeah. But then again, maybe not. But the next episode in season 2, I don't know why I keep calling episode season. In episode 2, they go and meet his daughter.
And we got to say that this is one of the avenues that they're focusing in on. They pick 3 things in the first episode that, like I said, they're filtering out the shit they can actually investigate. And the Terry Wrist guy is one. They quickly eliminate the dude who originally reported the goblin happenings because they can't get a hold of him and his email's dead. And the third is Intrude Cold Woody Derenberger. So they've actually contacted her and they're on their way to see her in episode 2.
And they actually do go see her. And they find out about how Indrid Cold died. He was like on some crazy mission. He was hunting down, well, I shouldn't say hunting down. He was following what she described as humanoids in spacecrafts. And they both got into a collision and everybody involved died.
Oh, so it wasn't like an honorable old age in the silver bed.
He was on a mission and he exploded on his mission.
That sucks.
Yeah. But she said that his children came and saw her and they were the ones that told her. But she also kind of believed that he may have been faking his own death. And she said that he had told her that, I believe she said that he was in danger. He had to, I can't recall exactly what she said, but he had talked to her and led her to believe that he needed to disappear for a while. So to her, when she found out about his death, she didn't exactly buy it. And apparently Carl Ardo died as well in the crash.
That was his co-pilot.
Yeah.
Didn't we call him Lando Calrissian? And
I think we did. Yeah, probably.
No hard feelings. R.I.P., buddy.
Yeah.
Lando's cool. That was a compliment. Relax.
Yeah. He's coming back in the new Star Wars movie.
He's
coming back to relevance. Don't you worry. But it's, she doesn't think that he's gone. And you remember that thing they did in the first season with the spirit box where they completely isolated the guy? He had the noise canceling headphones and they put blinders on him so he couldn't see, and he was just listening to the spirit box.
Yeah, the isolated session they did with that on that porch. Yeah,
and a lot of that shit was crazy at how it matched up with what was going on around them and the things that he was saying. But during that session, he mentions Carl and Connor, and they thought he was talking about Carl, who was making, he's behind Hellier. He's the guy that's making it, and Connor, who was the guy that had that was doing the spirit box listening. His name's Connor. And later on, they start to understand that maybe that these 2 names that were being called out were not who they thought they were, but it was Carl Ardo and Connor Cold, who is Indrid Cold's son.
Ooh.
So they later in this season they try to amplify that. So they put Connor back in the spirit box with the blinder and the noise canceling headphones. But then they put Dana Newkirk. If you've watched the episodes and the seasons, you know who Dana is. But her and her husband Greg, they're like the main investigators in this. They were the ones that got Greg was the one that initially got the email in season 1 about goblins that led them down this rabbit hole filled with aliens and out of place spirits and goblins and conspiracies and all manner of weirdness. Did you just hear that beep?
I heard what sounded like 2 glasses clinking together.
That was a beep, and now my camera has turned off.
Holy shit.
What the fuck? Okay, anyway. Dana has this thing called the God helmet, which is supposed to, I guess, amplify. I don't know if it's supposed to amplify psychic ability or if it's supposed to amplify a person's sensitivity to paranormal activity or entities or whatever. But Dana puts it on, and she's working in tandem with Connor and the spirit box. So she's using this to kind of broadcast emotion and broadcast questions, and they do a question and answer session back and forth, and it's unbelievable how close some of these questions and answers get.
Wow, even more impressive than the first session.
Yeah, because there'll be times when she will ask a question and Connor will immediately respond with some sort of answer. But the way that they communicate, whatever these things are, it's not in like a typical language like we communicate with, like where we use our voices to convey our emotions or what we're feeling or to describe situations. They kind of look at things, I guess, on a broader spectrum, like where they'll take an emotion or a feeling and try to put it into a simple word so that we can understand it. But I guess with the God helmet on, Dana said that she was actually kind of experiencing this communication on a different level. Like Connor would say the word, but then she would get this like rush of feeling, sometimes accompanied by visions. Sometimes it would be accompanied by a feeling. But she would describe what she was experiencing as well, and just the back and forth between these two. And then she's able to tell when the connection was cut before Connor realizes it, because Connor's got the spirit box set up on, so he doesn't know what's going on. And she's like, oh no, they're gone. And then he's still like kind of trying to listen for things. And he's like, I don't know, I can't hear anything anymore. But I think that was in the third episode. But that was really impressive. If you liked the spirit box part of the first season, then you'll like this one as well. It's pretty neat. And that's what I really like about their approach to this whole thing. Because if you were to look at it, like a lot of people would hear the Indrid Cold, Woody Derenberger story and think about it as like a alien contactee experience. Mm-hmm. But then there's the tie to the Mothman, which that kind of makes things weirder as well. It makes it so it's not just an alien contactee case, because you've got this weird other thing that's going on, and then the Men in Black are there, which is showing that there's something else weird that's going on there. And then you tie their own case that the crew from the show is investigating, and it started with goblins, like the Hopkinsville goblins sighting, and then it somehow tied into Indrid Cold and the Point Pleasant Mothman stuff. Oh, that's the other thing too. When they do that experiment, they did that in the TNT plant.
Really?
In Point Pleasant, yeah.
Yikes, brave.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's Barn Owl Central right there.
Yeah, man, they're lucky to get out of there with their scalps.
Yeah.
Barn owls will swoop down and just take away your scalp to make a nest. Mm-hmm. They don't even care. Wrap their baby in human flesh and hair.
Yeah, they eat it while they grow.
Yeah, that's what helps them grow to be big and strong and evil.
Sons of bitches.
Yeah, crazy barn owls. But it's just really, really neat how their approach to the whole thing, though, because they're not looking at it as being one specific type of phenomenon. Like, they're not being like, well, this is clearly ghosts, so we're gonna use ghost methods to detect the ghosts. They're looking at it as being this weird entity that's somehow crossing over into our reality, whether it's a physical being or not. They're just trying to find out as much as they can. So because they have a background in hunting ghosts, they try to use the tools that they're familiar with and see what results they get. And they're getting some pretty crazy results. And the skeptic can look at it and say that this is a TV show, and that of course they're going to get results, and the blinders aren't really blinding him, and the headphones aren't really noise canceling, and they've already got this whole thing scripted and set up so that these things happen. But just looking at the background and the way that they treat things, they don't seem like your typical ghost hunters that you'd find on television shows. They run a traveling paranormal museum, and that's like what they're primarily, up until this, what they were primarily known for was going on tour with this traveling paranormal museum,
right.
Which sounds really fucking cool, and I would really like to check it out if they ever come around. But that's what they did, and then they got into this investigation, and when they got the first email, I believe it was like a year went by before they even started doing anything about the show, recording it or anything. And Connor even says in the first episode of the second season that when they started it, they intended to make like an hour-long documentary about this weird chain of events, but things just kept opening up, and more leads happened, and weird synchronicities and coincidences and weirder characters popped up. And as this season goes on, it kind of starts getting into this weird conspiracy type thing involving human trafficking and torture and ritual sacrifice. And it sounds really like something that would be reminiscent of the satanic panic of the 80s, with all the things that they said these satanic cults were doing to children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really weird how things kind of play out. And like I said, I'm only going to go, I've only watched up to episode 4, so I'm not going to go beyond that. And so there's still, after season 4, there's still 6 episodes. So what I'm gonna talk about season 4. Why do I keep saying fucking seasons? God damn it! I'm gonna talk about episode 4 because it gets really intense, and it kind of really brings things up to a whole new level. So in the first season of the show, they talk about this book called The Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts, which I have read, and it's crazy. It ties occult magic to the ET contactee phenomenon, and it describes a way to communicate with them using numerology based in names that are given, and how everything that's related is a code, and the code can be deciphered using this secret cipher. But it's in the back of this book, there's an interview with a guy named Terry Wrist, who it seems kind of out of place in the book, but it's an interview with him about the cipher and how it led him to meet Indrid Cold. And he leaves all these hints for how to find him. And this was a big part of episode 2, is them kind of following the things that he was saying and looking for this place where he said Indrid Cold lived. And he didn't provide any specific address, but he gave a few little details and hints. And using that, they were able to kind of track down where this guy was talking about. But the area that the guy was referencing was the area in the late 70s, not what the current area looks like. So things have changed. And But he in season 1, someone wrote an email to Greg Newkirk, basically claiming to be this terrorist character, and they gave him a set of coordinates. So as season 1 filming has wrapped up, they haven't released any yet. I believe they had some episodes that were sent out for press viewing. Maybe it was like the first episode or something that they put out, that they released for podcasts and press of all sorts to view. But they were doing a live, I don't know, some live thing on the internet where maybe it was an Ask Me Anything or interview thing with their fans. I don't recall, but they're doing a live session online, and during the live session they get an email, and it's from this woman who starts talking about these weird things that have been happening, and it sounds very similar to what the initial email that started off season 1 was like. She's talking about these weird beings. I think she called them little trolls. But then she's talking about people being kidnapped from their houses and hearing screams in the middle of the night that will last all night long, and then they just stop abruptly. And when this email was sent, one of the people that they were working with that worked with them on season 1 decided to follow up on these coordinates that Terry Rist had sent them. And the coordinates lead him to this remote area in the woods in North Carolina. And when he gets there, he sees this tree that was it looked like someone had taken a chainsaw to it. There was sawdust everywhere, and the tree was just all completely destroyed all around him. But it's in the middle of the woods, and where this tree is destroyed was the exact area where the coordinates led him. And once he sees that, he calls Greg and Dana, because they had called him after receiving that email from this lady claiming to have this whole conspiracy thing happening. And so he calls them, and as he's calling them, he starts to hear this rumble, and he looks up, and it's a black helicopter that flies directly over where he is in the woods. Which is fucking really weird when you consider that this terrorist guy gave them coordinates to this place in the middle of the woods. While he's out there, he finds this lone tree in the middle of the woods that was all chopped to shit. Not like chopped cleanly like it was a fucking lumberjack that was cutting a tree down, but like chopped up like someone just went crazy with a chainsaw on a tree.
Huh.
You know, like just branches all strewn about, sawdust everywhere, and then the helicopter goes overhead. So he ends up running down the road, or running through the woods, finds a dirt path, and gets on the path and starts walking down where he comes across a farmhouse, and he starts asking questions about weird things that are going on, and they tell him that there's nothing weird going on, and send him on his way. But he said he pulls into a church to turn on his GPS, and all of a sudden, and he's calling Greg and Dana, and he hears someone knocks on his window, and he looks, and it's a cop, and the cop takes all his information, goes back to the car, and asks him what he's doing, and he just made up a story that he was geocaching. And the cop's like, well, you're planning on leaving, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm leaving right now. And as he's pulling out, he realized it wasn't just one cop. There were multiple undercover cars, and they followed him until he hit the state line, making sure that he got out. Yeah.
Huh.
I don't remember if we talked about this or not. I know we briefly talked about Chuck Zukowski, I think on a cattle mutilation episode, but he was part of MUFON for a while, but he did a lot of investigating in UFOs, and his sister was involved as well. And that sort of thing happened to his sister one time. She was investigating a cattle mutilation, And as she's leaving town, she stopped at a diner, and she said at the diner it's just all cops. And so she decides to leave, and they follow her, and they followed her until she crossed the state line, and then they left. It's weird how and that happened to her out in the Midwest, so very different area than the Southeast,
right?
But it's just weird how investigators, when they're getting in too deep and starting to look into weird things, that they experience similar kind of I guess you could call it harassment or intimidation.
Yeah, intimidation for sure.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you wonder, is that local law enforcement or is it maybe somebody else posing as local law enforcement? He did say that these were undercover cops, so maybe it wasn't an actual cop. Maybe it was government or whoever the men in black are.
I definitely think it is the authorities, but like the state police or local police, I think it's somebody above that utilizing those branches for sure. They got the order to make sure that kid got out of town, so they did.
Yeah, it's really creepy though, and it's just weird that he got these coordinates that just led him to the middle of the woods and a chopped up tree that was recently chopped up.
Now, do you see when? Because they show a clip of that, and I got to watch it. I didn't see the tree at all, which I very much looking forward to checking out. But when I saw the clip and having you explain it, my mind almost went to them setting them up to get caught, not to show them that was a traveling route for one of these black helicopters. Because I don't know, in the clip, the kid instantly says, "They know I'm here," which that's a weird thing to say. I don't think if I was in that situation, that would have come out of my mouth at all. But they did, because he got a knock on his window shortly after that. So do you think the person who sent that coordinates kind of was trying to trip them up or just show them the helicopter?
Well, that's why I mentioned the weird email that they got from that girl talking about all of the weird shit that she's experiencing, because then they start getting a back and forth, and it's going directly to Greg, and Greg starts going back and forth with this girl. But the reason he said that he says they know I'm here is because right before he had gone there, when he was on his way, Greg had called him to tell him about this email that he got because of the coordinates and the fact that he was going alone investigating this stuff. And now he's getting, the day that he leaves, he gets this email about this weird shit that's happening in this other place, in this other area. So it kind of just seemed like an odd coincidence that the exact same thing that started the Hellier thing got emailed to him again when this series has not even been released yet.
Yeah, kind of like a reoccurrence of what started this whole thing.
And it's his friend is going by himself to North Carolina to investigate a set of coordinates sent to them from this second guy who emailed them regarding the goblins initially, Terry Wrist, someone claiming to be this Terry Wrist character. So he was really paranoid going into it, but he's the type of guy that's like, fuck it, I'm already committed to going anyway, I'm going to see it through. So he did. But that's why he was getting really paranoid. And then she mentions in the email a green man. And when he went to that farmhouse, there was a tree. Are you aware of what the green man is?
No.
They're like the old carvings that were in trees. You can see them on the buildings too, but it's typically like a bearded guy surrounded by leaves.
I've never heard of that.
You've never seen those pictures?
No.
It's I mean, if you just Google green man, it'll show up, but it's like it's supposed to symbolize a nature spirit. But she mentions the green man, and when he went to this farmhouse, there was a tree that had a face carved in it with a big beard. And he asked them if it was a green man, and they just told him no, it was an old man, but he took pictures of it. And in the email before he went, the one that was received when he was on his way mentioned a green man, and that's what they are. Their faces carved into trees most often.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's really weird, man. But she continued to email Greg for a while, telling him about how she's getting all this information, how she's got names of all the children that have gone missing, that she's got proof. She found this, she found a cabin that had chains and documents and all sorts of things in there. But it's like this whole satanic panic conspiracy type thing that once again started with goblin sightings, but she called them little trolls.
So is she claiming, it sounds like if she's finding documents and cabins that have what looks like holding areas and chains and stuff like that, it seems like that's bleeding into something else other than the paranormal or cryptozoological.
Well, she says that these people are part of like this occult group that's trying to use old rituals to summon the green man, or who would be like a nature spirit. And that's why she hears these screams and can't do anything about it. A lot of times she can't find who's screaming, but the screams go on for hours, like they're being tortured. And the last email she sent was her saying that she's got a lot of information and got the names and everything, and then she never responds back again.
Oh, at all?
Well, this is as of episode 4.
Okay.
Yeah. But episode 4 centers on that whole mystery. It's fucking crazy. So we add conspiracy to this whole tangled mess that they've been unraveling, and nature spirits get tied into it, which I don't know if you remember, but in the episode in the first season when they do the spirit box, they make offerings to the nature spirits before they did it. So there's the tie there as well.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah. And all this shit started coming out before the first season was even released. And there were all these weird tie-ins with things. So it was somebody who obviously knew about the things that were going on from an inside perspective somehow. Mm-hmm. So they originally were speculating that it was the guy that wrote the secret cipher of the UFOnauts, or the UFOnauts, Alan Greenfield, I think that was his name. But they think it's him fucking with them, which seems like it would be kind of weird to have this author just all of a sudden be like, I'm going to fuck with these guys.
Yeah.
But he's the only one who's ever written about this Terry Wrist guy. And clearly that's a pseudonym, but it's a weird one to have repeat, especially in similar circumstances.
Right. I wonder if that's just a name people in that field go to. If that's just like, Disco Balls 97, just some name they pick or a code name they pick. If they're dealing with that type of weird goblin-esque underground tunnels, snatching people out of their houses team.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like an insider term that most aren't privy to.
Yeah, just like every fucking fighter pilot team in every movie has like an ace or a dodger or something like that. That's just like a go-to name. Maybe Terry Wrist is a go-to name for the deep information type people. Maybe that Terry Wrist is a different person. It's somebody carrying on a mantle in the same organization or privy
like
to
the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Exactly. Like Moon Knight or the Blue Beetle.
I like this idea.
Yeah, it is Terry Wrist, but just not the same one. It's another Terry Wrist. Maybe Terry Wrist is a name for these agents. Freedom agents trying to leak out information and lead people to clues. We're all Terry Wrist. Ooh, that sounds bad. Never mind.
But I'm really excited to see what the rest of this season is going to bring. Especially after watching episode 4, I'm very excited to see how the rest of this plays out. And, especially knowing that this is 10 episodes and there's a lot of information that goes on in these episodes. So I'm like, I almost felt like episode 4 was leading to the big conclusion, but that's only leading to the halfway point. So
yeah,
I can't wait to see what the rest of this season brings. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, man. I mean, I was surprised that there was a season 2. I didn't think there was going to be a season 2. I didn't assume there was. I'm glad that they continued to investigate this. Like I said before, I'm glad they're taking the direction that they are. It's just amazing what keeps happening and the things they keep uncovering. And I think you make a great point. I think Greg and Dana are just people who are into this shit, and this thing fell into their lap. You know, like you said, they have a traveling paranormal objects museum. They're not going out and filming themselves in abandoned warehouses or churches or hospitals and stuff like that. That's not their bag, and all of a sudden it is, because it kind of has to be, because they're not ignoring this, which I appreciate. I said after we watched season 1, there's a lot of garbage like this floating around. Some of it which we've talked about recently, but if they're going to be making stuff like this, these are the people I want to do it. I think they're doing a great job. I'm super excited that there is even a season 2, and just the way it's going. And like you said, all the shit that's happened in 4 episodes is only the halfway point. I mean, just watching the first one with you, they don't hold anything back. They come out swinging. They start with good stuff and good information. And like, holy shit, they set you up real nice, for the rest of the episode. So I'm very looking forward to it. I thought it was really awesome for Greg to send us the press kit. That's pretty cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that was very cool.
But I can't wait to see how this goes. Just the first season was so unbelievable. I mean, I watched the first season once and had to sit down. I made my oldest watch it, and I told her, like, hey, we've got the first 4 episodes of the new season. She was like, what? And even she wants to watch it. And I mean, I don't know. I didn't think it was going to get any fucking weirder. I didn't think it could. And again, I only watched the first one right now with Mike, and I was like, oh man. It's not, they didn't open another can of worms. They opened up 7. And that's after narrowing shit down and trying to get a handle on, I don't know, maybe that's a weird way to put it, but a better handle on the situation, because like you said, every episode was just so much information and so much stuff going on. And documentaries do that when they're in a rush to pack shit into an episode, and they're not doing that. There's just so much weird shit going on. I remember we were both blown away at how this was starting with goblins, and then it turned into the Mothman shit, and then it turned to the Hopkinsville goblins and how there's tunnels connecting everything, and then it starts to turn into coordinates to weird places. I was like, it started to branch out everywhere, and somehow it's branching out further. It's bleeding out more into unknown shit, and I can't wait to finish watching all of it.
Yeah, it's and one of the things that they talk about a lot is synchronicities, but it still blows my mind that my own personal research was kind of going down a similar track that they were going while they were doing their investigation into this whole thing, and just the ideas that the paranormal in general is far more connected than most people want to give it credit for, and how there's a lot of bleeding over between different sorts of phenomenon, but they kind of all come back together in some weird way. And this series, this show is really really going a long way in attempting to document that and how this phenomenon and that phenomenon, like how all these different things that are normally thought of as being different are connected, and how they all lead down a similar road. And it's true, like the more that you look into this sort of stuff, the more weird shit ends up happening to you.
Yeah, I liked how Connor made mention of how they were trying to calm down. And we kind of mentioned when we talked about season 1 how the synchronicities were maybe being looked at too heartily. And this time we watched episode 1 and you made the joke of like, I dare anybody to make a drinking game of watching either season 1 or 2 to where they have to take a drink when they say synchronicity. But they do make mention of they're trying to not get so excited. And I love that he said the phrase that maybe this is just what happens when you investigate something like this. And I think that's more in tune to what's happening. I think that...
Yeah, because like look at all the shit that happened with John Keel when he really started getting deep into his investigations.
Right. I think that this is... that type of stuff is a byproduct of being on the right track. There's millions of people investigating millions of things, and they're not having things line up for them like they are with this investigation.
Yeah, it's... I don't remember who said it, but when you look into the eyes of the abyss looks back. But the same goes for paranormal investigation. And I really think it's kind of, you start really looking into it, you're kind of calling attention to it and basically you're waving a road flare around like, hey, look at me. And then it does look.
Yeah. And it's, you can, when you talk about shit like that, if we're talking about a goddamn documentary about goblins attacking people's houses and that being linked to Mothman and everything that we've already said before, you're going to expect that there's going to be somebody on the team who's sensitive or a witch or something like that. We've all seen it 1,000 times, but I strongly believe that you've got to have that type of person, no matter what. If it's a tech person, if it's a historian, you've got to have a person that's doing that job at the right level. You can't have somebody walking around everywhere you go, walk to McDonald's and they're like, there's a spirit here. You're like, come on, you can't have that. You can't have the guy walking around looking like a Ghostbuster trying to investigate a knocks coming from a house. So I think they're all at like the perfectly reasonable level for what their specialties are. And I think that's why they're getting the results that they're getting. And I think a lot of people should take note of that. Maybe Joe Nichols should read some fucking books.
Yeah. Maybe he should hang out with the Newkirks for a while. They can word him up about the sandhill crane and barn owls.
Yeah. He could have said Shoebill and I would have been, okay.
You know what? Shoebill, like, buy into that one.
That thing's fucking ugly. And at night time, okay. But not a sandhill crane or a barn owl. Barn owl, I believe now. We know now. That's completely true.
Now we know. We know better now about the barn owl.
Thinking about that, we owe Mr. Joe Nicola a debt of gratitude.
We do. He let us know about the majesty and malevolence of the barn owl. And their cruelty, and that they want us to believe that all barn owls are monsters. And they are, but they're not like monstrous monsters. They're like, we'll rip your face off monsters.
Yeah. Monsters in the sense of cruelty.
So, and he did also say that the Hopkinsville goblins were barn owls. And now here we are dealing with goblins and the Mothman links. Yet, mysteriously, no one mentions a barn owl.
Oh, that
kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Season 3. They're going to go into the woods and there's just going to be a ripped 8-foot tall barn owl. He's going to be like, I heard you're looking for me.
No, it's going to be the fucking effigy Moloch from Bohemian Grove comes to life and starts wreaking havoc across the countryside.
And it talks in that cool 50s, like always reverby voice. You have found me, the great Moloch.
Yeah.
Here's to hoping.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast? Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.